good evening, good morning, good night, wherever you are, whatever you're doing. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the analysis that I'm about to provide from day 9. I say good night, good evening, good morning, and good day. I think it's more relevant today than ever. My body clock is all over the show. I've been trying for over a week now to get to Australian time, and at times I'm there, but at times I'm not. I was struggling through certainly the last match of the day, but we'll come to that in a second. Let's just have a quick hello to some people. Apologies for the delay, by the way. We had some technical issues. The first technical issue being that, as I say, the body clocks, and we would like to do this a bit earlier in the afternoon as a bit more reactionary, but it was just very difficult for us. I needed to have a siesta. I need to be fresh. I need to be ready to go, as will the semi-finalists come Friday. Let's have a quick hello. Nadal v Berrettini will be a 2:30 p.m. match. Okay, that's interesting. Alex, is that 100%? That will be interesting if that's the case. I had heard that they were going to both be in the evening. 12 Travel 21. I think Mr. Silk is just deciding which bandana to put on today. Takes time. Nice. Ross suggesting I was in makeup. Makes sense. If I was in makeup, I shall be firing my makeup person ASAP. But yeah, we had a few delays, but it's great to be here. Silk must be using JG's alarm clock. Yeah, nice. Gene, crazy day. Yeah, crazy day. So let's get to it, shall we? For me, this was the sort of image of the day, if you like. As we can see here, Rafa celebrating. This is at match point, which I think was appropriately enough, was a super short point. I think 3, 4, 5 shots, something like that, as all the shots were in that final set, as all the rallies were, if you like, or lack of rallies, particularly on Rafa's serve. And this came from an unforced error from Shapovalov. I mean, you could call it forced, but really he should be getting that in on match point. But we'll come to that in a second. We'll come to Shapovalov. We'll come to a deep dive on how the match panned out. But this is the moment that Rafa Nadal and his supporters, and he's there kind of in front of his box, realized that he was in the Australian Open semi-final for the first time in 3 years, at a stage of the tournament where he'd gone out so often in the past. He now has a 7-7 record at the quarterfinals in Melbourne, his worst of all the slams, if you like, in terms of the fact he has a winning record, so to speak, at the quarterfinal stage of every other one. I think at Wimbledon, he's never lost a quarterfinal, for example, whereas even the French he has. But unlike last year, Tsitsipas, unlike the year before, Dominic Thiem, unlike Marin Cilic in 2018 when he pulled up injured, he managed to prevail in 5 very dramatic sets. Was it the highest of qualities? Well, that's another question, and we will be addressing that very shortly. Let's go back, though. Let's start from the beginning of the match, if you like. They exchanged serves for the first couple of games, but Rafa looking very comfortable on his serve. And this is a point that I know we've mentioned a few times before, and I know Rafa has even mentioned it, particularly after the Khachanov. But we're going to look at his return position, because I think it's very interesting to see how he used that in the first 2 sets, I would say in particular. As the match began to slip away from him, it was a bit more hit and miss, if you like, or mixing his return position. But for the first 2 sets, it was pretty, not consistent, but it was consistent throughout each game. Here's an image of him, for example, in game 2, or pretty much his first return. And this is on a second serve from Shapovalov. And we can see him here about 2 meters behind the baseline. Sorry, this is a first serve. I apologize. This is a first serve from Shapovalov. This is, for Rafa, this is pretty aggressive, okay? And to be honest with you, I'm reminded of you wouldn't think it's a particularly pertinent comment, but I remember him making a comment after losing to Zverev in straight sets at Paris-Bercy at the end of 2020. And he said he regretted the fact that he stood so far back from the court. And it wasn't until towards the end of the match that he took a more aggressive position closer to the baseline to return Zverev's serves. By then, though, it was too late to get himself back in that match, and he ended up losing in straight sets. So he starts with a similar philosophy against Shapovalov to that philosophy he had at the end of the match against Zverev, as I mentioned in Paris Bercy 2020. Also the philosophy he's deployed a lot throughout this tournament, and in the 3 sets that he won against Khachanov in particular, this is the aggressive return position he adopted. And in fact, for the second serve, he was almost on the baseline, which for Rafa, if we can remember those images for him, particularly in Paris, when he's so far back, he's almost in Bordeaux on Philippe Chatrier. This is a pretty aggressive stance. Now, he loses this game quite comfortably. I think he gets 1 or maybe 2 points at best. He certainly doesn't push him to deuce. So it's interesting then to see his stance for the next service game. Now, this is the other end of the court, but let me tell you now, the shadow is fairly equidistant. Everything in Melbourne is done down to a T, even the shadows. None of this Madrid bizarre shadow stuff that really can affect both viewers and players. Now we can see he's already garnered 3 break points at this point from a much deeper return position on the first serve, but also on the second. So interesting, aggressive, close to the baseline, first and second serves, loses that game comfortably. Here, partly because of the return, because of the unforced errors that Shapovalov was getting, that having the more time to return that first serve or even second serve was just meaning that he was pretty much guaranteed to get it back in play. If he got it back in play with any sort of venom, he knew a mistake was coming from Shapovalov, and he ended up breaking quite comfortably here. So, interesting. Aggressive, loses game. Far back, wins game. Now let's have a look at the next time he's returning serve in game 6, as we see here. Now, again, he's gone a little bit more aggressive. He's gone a bit more aggressive here. This is on the first serve. We can see him out of the shadow. I know it's the other end of the court, but trust me, if anything, there's more of a shadow. There's more sunlight at this end than there is here. So we can see him again going from the aggressive point, the aggressive baseline thing. This is on a first serve. He's probably 1 meter behind here compared to 1.5 meters behind here compared to 3 meters behind in the previous game. He gets it to deuce in this one, but he loses. We're seeing a pattern here. Aggression, loses. Far back, wins. Aggression, loses. This pattern continues all the way through the first and second sets. He was mixing up a little bit, but the next time that he really goes aggressive on the return, the next time he really goes far back on the return serve is in the 7th game of the second set. Again, we can see this return position far back. So I think we have we've got about, 9 add 6, we've got 15. So this is the 8th return game, if you like, for Nadal. On 2 occasions, he stands far back. On 6 occasions, he's aggressive. And let me tell you now, the 6 aggressive return times, he loses the game. The 2 occasions he stands far back, he wins the game. It's almost the complete reverse to what happened against Khachanov. Khachanov, aggression, got him the 3 sets that he won. The far back position arguably cost him the set, along with a few other little tiny details. But very interesting that actually the opposite was happening. And I was a bit surprised that he didn't take this far back stance a bit more often during the first 2 sets, because he basically won every time he was far back. Primarily because Shapovalov was helping him a bit with the unforced errors. And we are going to come to that in a minute. What I do want to mention, though, at this stage is so this is also an important point. This is the same point, by the way. So we've got this starting point here. And this is what I mean by the mistakes from Shapovalov helping, is that he takes this position, he gets himself into the point, but still Shapovalov should win the point. And we've got an image here from about 2 shots later. And Nadal gets that return back in play. Shapovalov pushes Nadal to the right. Nadal's in quite a tricky position. Shapovalov has kind of brought him into the net, but it's not an easy shot for Rafa, especially as Shapovalov intelligently comes in and closes. But here, Shapovalov has got to go down this gaping wide area of the court. But what does he do? He hits it back across court to Nadal here, who has a volley and puts it into the open court, giving him a love 30, ultimately unassailable lead. So Shapovalov was helping Nadal with some of these not unforced errors. This was more of a, I think, experience, if you like, here. I think another couple of years on the tour, maybe the instinctive moment here that hopefully will be ingrained in Shapovalov will mean he puts the ball here, but ultimately he gifts it to Nadal. And Nadal was playing well in the first two sets, but we can't ignore the fact that Shapovalov was at least assisting him with some unforced errors. Something else we can't ignore during the first set is that Shapovalov, of course, lost it mentally, if you like. I don't think he lost actually his composure. I think, if anything, it put Nadal off a little bit. But basically, Shapovalov was angry, shot clock gate once again, using the time. Rafa was under pressure, if you like, at times in terms of the way, particularly at the end of the first set, Nadal, I think, was changing his clothes. That seemed to upset Shapovalov. The time between the points. There was even a comment from Shapovalov during this outrage, if you like, at the end of the first set, where he said, "All of you are corrupt," he said to the umpire, which, I don't know, it'd be interesting to see if there's any repercussions of that. Perhaps there won't be. I've not heard too much since, but that's a pretty aggressive take from Shapovalov. I think, having outbursts and saying all sorts of things, but to suggest that all of you are corrupt, and he's saying it, I guess, to umpires, referees, and organizations, that's a pretty incendiary remark. It'll be interesting to see. Let me know what you think in the live chat about this episode. I actually do think that there was a moment where Rafa kind of lost his concentration a bit, etc. But yeah, let's have a quick look at the live chat. I've kind of ignored you guys for the moment, so I'm going to have a look at some of your comments here. JG, feel free to shove any up on the screen while I have a quick scroll through. I honestly don't like people calling him mentally weak for displaying emotion like this. I guess, Rawi, you're referring to Shapovalov here. A Grand Slam quarterfinal is more pressure than most of us will ever face. You don't have to like his behavior, but not weak. I actually think I don't view Shapo's behavior at this point as being weak. We see lots of players getting angry. We see it from Djokovic and Medvedev, who've won 21 Grand Slams between them. John McEnroe would do it, obviously. I think that there was a bit more from Shapovalov here. I think there was a bit of gamesmanship. We touched on it with Medvedev, but I do think that in this point, he's actually trying to apply pressure to the umpire. In that he will just keep an eye on the shot clock. And later on in the match, it was kind of near the end of the match, Rafa did get a time warning, if you like. But Shapovalov, I don't think, John, it's not B&W. He's intentionally giving Shapo different return positions to throw him off. He's a very smart player. Okay, I'm not sure what B&W stands for, but I do know what we're talking about here, the return position. Yeah, I know what you mean. That he's doing that to throw Shapovalov off, but I just think in those and that was certainly the tactic from third set onwards. But in those two games that he won, he was fairly consistent in that he was back. In the other six that he lost, he was fairly consistent in the aggressive position. I just think I would have liked him to take the sort of more cautious position, if you like, further back during those first two sets. Black and white. Oh, I see. It's not black and white. Okay. No, I know what you mean. And I think he was mixing up a lot as the match wore on. But it was fairly black and white during the first two sets, or the first, I think it was 12 or so return games where, as I say, he was aggressive on two occasions and he was not aggressive on the others. Rafa certainly thought it was black and white against Khachanov. Afterwards, he just said, look, first two sets, I was aggressive on return of serve. Third set, I was not. And I decided to maintain that throughout the third set. But I knew I would switch back in the fourth set if it was to go to a full set, which it obviously did. Of course, there are far too many variables in tennis to just say it's because of this that he won those games. I'm not suggesting that, not for 1 second. As I said, Shapovalov certainly played his part. John, there was no gamesmanship before the start of the fifth. Ultimately, it's on Shapo to concentrate. I think there was gamesmanship at Vanch at the end of that first set. I think the outburst from Denis Shapovalov was also to tell the umpire to keep an eye on this. This is what's happening. I don't like it. I do think, of course, he's frustrated, and there's a mixture of the two at play there. But Rafa did sort of seem to be a bit thrown for a couple of points. He got his mind back on it, and he continued. and off he went and comfortably won those 2 sets for a variety of reasons, but especially because Shapovalov was not doing himself any favors. I thought Rafa was playing well in those first 2 sets. I think he played better at times against Khachanov, if I'm honest, and possibly against Mannarino. But he was playing well, and there's no doubt that his performance did dip. Rafa actually even said that during the second set, he started to feel the heat, if you like, and we are going to be coming to that very shortly. And I think in terms of conditions, I think we can also have a quick look at some interesting stats from the match. Rafa looked sick after the match, maybe COVID-related. Yeah, I saw this during the live chat as we were covering it, when Ben and JG were covering it earlier. Yeah, maybe. Not sure. I think it's very easy to, just regarding the COVID thing. Hi, Vanch. Thanks for the super chat, by the way. I'm referring to the break Rafa took before the start of the 5th. Broke Shapo's momentum. Oh, okay. Still Shapo could concentrate. Yeah, true. But when he got stressed, Shapo, it was at the end of the first set during sort of the end of the first set, and he's changing his clothes. At least that's what Rafa said in his press conference. But I think Rafa taking a break at the end of the 4th set was kind of normal. I don't think Shapo, at least on the court at the time, he may have said something in his press conference afterwards, but on the court at the time, there was no outburst from Shapovalov at the end of the 4th set like there was at the end of the 1st. Remember, he's just won the 4th set, so that may be a reason. Yes, Rafa takes a break. He often takes breaks at ends of sets when he's won or lost, particularly given the fact that he's sweating quite a lot. And he said so, changed all my clothes, took the 5 minutes. He in Rafa's press conference afterwards, he highlighted the Tsitsipas-Murray match, which kind of was the straw that broke the camel's back regarding this thing. Vanch says Rafa took like 7 minutes. Yeah, I think that the players get a kind of a 5-minute thing where, this is quite a new rule, so it'll be interesting to see how it's applied. Yeah, I do remember seeing the clock at about 6.5 minutes from the last point. For what I understand it, and we can correct me if I'm wrong in the chat, it's not from the last point. He gets 5 minutes from the minute he leaves the court to the minute he returns. And I do believe that they've got a person with them that's knocking on the door, basically saying, chop, chop, let's go. Let's get back to the match, though, and let's get into some of the nitty-gritty of the details. I'd like to bring up now a stat that's an excellent stat regarding Rafa on serve today. He's definitely going more aggressive on that second serve, and that's probably part of the reason, but it's not the only reason. Today, there was 11 double faults by Nadal. And so this is kind of where the match changed. Rafa said he started to feel a bit tired, if you like, during the second set. And I know you could highlight the fact he's only lost 1 set until now, but that tiebreak against Mannarino was like a set on its own, in a way. So I do think that there's a lot of energy lost there, and he's still coming back. Somebody mentioned COVID, of course, and other things. But this stat regarding 11 double faults, it's too much. And he won't be able to get away with that again in other matches. But there's 2 parts here. I think his physical condition, I think seeing the end in sight, perhaps. Don't forget, it was 4-5 when he got broken in the 3rd. So, that was heading to a tiebreak, if you like. But he couldn't hold serve there. But another important thing is, and Ravi here is really important to remember, that it is slightly different in terms of conditions and on clay, etc. But actually, as the ball goes over the net, there shouldn't be too many differences comparing his second serve speed. Look at that gap. I tend to sort of use kilometers an hour, but whether you use kilometers an hour or miles an hour, it was much slower last year on the second serve compared to this year. Much slower. We're looking at more than a 10% increase there on second service speed, which will also explain the double faults. So he gets to 2-1, and you're still thinking Rafa's got the advantage here. I do think that looking at how it was with Tsitsipas last year, and obviously Djokovic as well at the French. So, of course, at the Djokovic one, he takes a 1-set lead, ends up losing 3-1. Tsitsipas takes a 2-set lead, ends up losing 3-2. We saw some echoes of each match, particularly the Tsitsipas match in this one. But I think there's one big difference. Let's talk about the Tsitsipas one. I think there's a really direct comparison there, because Tsitsipas is 2 sets to love, boom, 2 sets all, and then ultimately Tsitsipas prevails, winning 3-2. It was in Melbourne. It was a year ago. Here, similar situation, 2-0, okay, to Rafa, 2 sets all. But there was the biggest difference between the Tsitsipas match and today was the person on the other side of the net. Tsitsipas was not taking any prisoners last year, and Tsitsipas was unbelievably good and was playing unbelievably well. Shapovalov did in spells, but at no point was he reaching the consistency, particularly on the backhand, that Tsitsipas was firing with last year. And so that always gave Rafa a chance, whereas I think Rafa's chances against Tsitsipas were much slimmer, if you like, with the exception of the final game of the match. So that was the big difference for me compared to a year ago. That was the thing I was clutching to. I was worried for Rafa, especially as midway through that fourth set or towards the end of the fourth set, we saw him clutching at his stomach. And we were thinking, we saw all those rib injuries that were happening last year, the abdominal injuries that were occurring during the Australian Open last year. We haven't seen them so many times this year, but we were thinking, well, if this is an abdominal issue, this is going to be big trouble. As it turned out, it was a stomach issue in terms of the heat. Now, I'm going to bring us back to obviously the time of the match. Searing heat, 32 degrees plus centigrade, which of course means that's in the shade. So of course in the sunshine, it'll be a good 10 or 15 degrees higher. Then of course on down below on the court, not a great deal of wind. This is not Philippe Chatrier in October like in 2020. These are not cool temperatures. These are of course preferable temperatures for Rafa Nadal generally in terms of the way the match is going. But you were thinking he needs to get this done in 3 or 4 to really take advantage of that. And we saw Krejcikova in the previous match that took place on Rod Laver, and we'll be coming to that shortly. She was struggling too. She actually was really, really struggling, and she was kind of red in the face. She had a medical timeout, very similar to Rafa. Rafa took a tablet, it seemed, to try and settle his stomach down, if you like. And that's where we were at. And then Shapovalov gets his break in the fifth. And you're thinking, Rafa wasn't moving very comfortably either. Rafa then takes his timeout, if you like, at the end of the fourth, changes his clothes, comes back, and you're thinking, right, how can Rafa win this match from here? There's really only 1 or 2 avenues. One is that the serve has got to be spot on and maybe hopefully get to a tie break. But of course, every game in that that's an interesting thing actually. 12 travel 21 BBC weather says almost 100% chance of rain. You're just going up slightly there on that comment. That was an interesting one there from 12-21. Yeah, says 100% chance of rain on Friday, so the semi-final will be an indoor match. How will the roof being closed affect Rafa Berrettini? Well, let's see. These 3-day ahead forecasts tend to be less accurate than the day before or even hours before. But let's say it is raining, and let's say it's indoor. That will benefit Berrettini, I would suggest. I think the ideal scenario for Rafa is outdoor, no roof closed, but be first on, which I suspect, given the semi-finals from Tuesday, you would expect the first ones to be on. So I think, if he's the earlier match of the two, which almost certainly he will be, I would suggest it's better for him to have the roof open. We remember how it was against Djokovic in that Wimbledon semi-final when the roof was closed and the match swung in Djokovic's favor, and Rafa mentioned it afterwards, that it's better for him to have the roof open. However, there was that French Open final of 2020, which was all done with the roof closed, and Rafa won that comfortably. But that was on clay, also on grass. We see Rafa's performances indoor over 2 sets at least, or best of 3. I think he's won 1 tournament his entire career indoor. So, yeah, and we know how he gets on at the ATP final. So I would suggest he would rather not have it indoors. But if it is, that's how it is. I think the bigger issue is the fact that he's playing Berrettini than Monfils, if I'm honest. Berrettini is a much tougher proposition, and he's a much better player than he was in 2019. Remember, Berrettini only lost to 1 player at all slams last year, and that was Djokovic, and we know how his year panned out. So I think the major factor is that he's playing Berrettini, not Monfils, but we'll come to that a bit later on. Yeah, so where was I? Yeah, so that's the stat regarding Nadal, and then we go to the fifth. And so the only sort of avenues for success for Nadal as we come into that fifth are excellent serving, less double faults, hitting the spots, hitting them fast, getting back to the sort of service situation to the first two sets, hoping to avoid a tiebreak, I would suggest as well, and just hoping to get a break at some point. And it came. It came quite early on. I think, was it game 3 in the in that set where he got the break? Let's have a quick look at some of the stats from the match. And I think we're going to see the unforced errors there being the big one. I mean, look at that. 44-17 on the unforced errors. Shapovalov 44, Nadal 17. And that, of course, Nadal's double unforced errors will include these 11 double faults. So then if you look at the unforced error count in open play, so to speak, 6 for the entire match over a 5-set match. That's just over one. That's basically one unforced error a set from open play, at least. So that is impressive. And I have to say, that is another thing that's probably gone under the radar a bit. He's not done too many unforced errors, Rafa Nadal. But this is too high from Shapovalov. We know he's aggressive. We expect that. There will be unforced errors, but even so, this is far too high. 44 is far too high. 20 is an impressive ace count. He'll be pleased with that, but this is far too high. And that's what he has to be most angry about. I think there was a chance, a very good chance for Shapovalov to win today. I made my prediction before, said it was 50-50. It panned out in the terms of the result, very close to that, but actually the match didn't quite pan out. I didn't expect Shapovalov to be so off, and his return of serve in the first and second set. I think I saw at one point there was a stat saying he was losing or wasn't able to return like 67% of Rafa's second serves, which is ridiculous. Ridiculous. Okay, let's look at that fifth set, and let's look at kind of, I guess, the crucial moment, which was the moment when Rafa breaks. Rafa did get a little bit lucky. He had that one point. I'm not sure if it was in the service break. I wish I could recall. Let me know in the chat if this came in the break game in the fifth set. But there was a point. I think it was on the third game, actually, when Rafa's holding. And Rafa's at the net, and he hits what was a fairly easy volley, I would suggest, at the net. Shapovalov is way out of the game. Rafa's done pretty well to force him out wide. Rafa comes into the net, has an easy-ish volley at the net, which hits the net cord and trickles over the net. And that really was the tennis gods. I think it may have been Ben. It may well have been JG said the tennis gods are just smiling on Rafa there. And boy, did he need that. And boy, did he take advantage of that. But yeah, Shapo probably shouldn't be losing his serve really to a guy who was not moving very well either. I know we had the stomach thing. I do think there was another thing, by the way, that was mentioned during the Ben JG commentary towards the end of the fourth set. And I think it was there was some speculation either in the chat or even from the guys in the studio were suggesting that maybe Rafa could just take it easy for this next couple of games and then sort of go for it again in the fifth. I saw it slightly differently. I mean, Rafa did have a couple of break points at the end of that fourth set and nearly did break back to get it on serve. But I also saw that if he could just string out that fourth set a little bit longer, the shadow was starting to come over the court. With the shadow, temperatures drop a little bit, not sufficiently enough to affect the topspin forehand, although really by now, because we're not going into long rallies really, there was very few rallies throughout the match. That's why we had a 5-set match, but well under 4 hours in total. I think that the shadow was also playing in Rafa's favor. So I actually thought that just get another game or two at the end of that fourth set, take a 5-minute break as he did. And that's enough time that basically, as we can see from this image here, that by the time the match finished, pretty much the whole court was in the shadow. It meant the heat, which was bothering Nadal in the sets 3 and 4, and of course, to some extent in set 5, was slightly less of an issue because the temperature was coming down. But still, there was plenty to do. Rafa broke. Shapovalov shouldn't be getting broken. Unforced errors again. Unforced errors again, even in the final game of the match, which we'll come to briefly in a second. But the shadow was there. Slight bit of luck on that net cord moment. But actually, Rafa wasn't really under pressure on his serve in that fifth set because he was serving so well, because the unforced errors were coming. There was so few rallies. Once Shapo was broken once, Rafa didn't come close to breaking again. Pretty much every game in that final set, with the exception of the time when Rafa broke, was game to 15, I think. And Rafa served excellently. Shapo served pretty well too, with the exception of the game when he was broken. And Rafa did mention as well afterwards that in sets 3 and 4, aside from his travails in terms of illness, he also was finding it really difficult on Shapo's second serve. He was serving big on his second serve, and that's a feather in Shapo's cap. But there will be regrets from Shapovalov. An even match point. Match point, Rafa is kind of out of this. It's 40-15. Rafa doing what Rafa had been doing really throughout the set, keeping the points short. He couldn't. Every time Shapovalov was getting a decent return in, Rafa's footwork was gone. Rafa was not there for rallies in that fifth set. Rafa was hoping to get a decent first serve in, which he did quite often, was hoping to get a decent second serve in. I think the double faults did drop a bit in that fifth set. But all Shapovalov had to do is get himself into the point, which he did on a couple of occasions, or more than a couple of occasions, and don't do an unforced error. And I think if we look at the fifth set match point, 40-15, it's a microcosm of that. He does get himself into the point, which he didn't always do in the fifth set. He got himself into the point. Rafa is kind of struggling. I think Rafa in the first set, there's a point in pretty much Rafa's last shot of the match where Rafa is kind of forced out wide. But Rafa goes conservative. As we do see, I actually did a deep dive once on Rafa's match championship points at all 20 slams that he's won. And he does tend to err on the side of caution on the championship points. And he did it again on the match point because he could have gone big down the line on match point here. But he didn't. And he goes cross court, which is kind of the safer option. Shapovalov should be making this volley and he should be keeping it in. But it goes out. And at that point, we see this image of Rafa Nadal. Relief, exultation, excitement. By the way, if you're feeling any relief, because this section is coming to an end, as it is very soon, I'm going to be quickly going on to the others. Hit that like button, as the Game to Love guys said. I want to get 100 likes. Let me know how many likes I'm on. Make sure you subscribe as well. And we've got another Rafa match to review on Friday, so we can look forward to that then. Let's come to a couple of post-match stats, if you like. There's a couple, certainly, that are very interesting. This one in particular from Darren Walton is nice. Rafa Nadal's epic Australian Open win ensures at least one of the big three makes the semi-finals for a 70th time in the past 71 Grand Slams. The only occasion it didn't happen that we had one of Djokovic, Nadal, or Federer in the semi-finals at Slam was since 2004, was it 2020, when Federer and Nadal weren't there. Federer was out injured. Nadal sat it out for one reason or another. I think we were sort of just coming back from the pandemic. And Djokovic was defaulted. It's the only time we haven't had one of the big three at the semi-finals of a Slam since 2004. Unbelievable stat. Just incredible. Oh, we've got to highlight this, by the way. At the end of the match, let's go to the image of Rafa again. The end of the match, Rafa said in his on-court interview afterwards with Courier, I think he mentioned it in other interviews he gave in his press conference, but also to Eurosport afterwards, Rafa said, "I was destroyed." Well, it wasn't the only thing that was destroyed at the end of the match, because Shapo destroys his racket. I said he did an unforced error, destroys his racket, and there's a funny little cameo here. What happens next? The girl comes on sheepishly, not knowing what to do, picks up the racket, and heads off into the sunset. I thought it was quite a funny little cameo. She didn't really know what to do. I think smashing your racket on match point isn't really a good look, but hey, there's bigger issues to worry about with Shapovalov today. I think I'd focus more on the on-court stuff and just the way he performed, his poor returns, the unforced errors, 44, way too much if you want to be winning Grand Slam matches against certainly one of the big three and one of the best players of all time. I'm going to finish with one comment I mentioned about, or I'm going to finish with this Nadal segment and one comment yesterday or a couple of days ago I think it was yesterday in the chat, we were having a laugh about animals on court, and we mentioned how we'd seen what have we had? We had seagulls, and we had butterflies, and we had cockroaches, and we were joking about what animals we'd see next. Kangaroos would be the obvious one. Comparisons with alligators in Florida in the past. JG joking about having a rhino. Well, I think for sure yesterday we had a lion on court. And Rafa will proceed to the next round, to the semi-finals, his first time, as I say, in 3 years, where he will face Matteo Berrettini. Let me know what you think in the live chat of this match. I couldn't watch all of it. I had to have some downtime because I actually watched the Rafa match. I watched the Keys match. We'll come to that as well in a second, the Keys Krejcikova match. I then started watching Barty Pegula because I was so pumped with energy from the Rafa match that I suddenly was super wide awake, despite it being 9 o'clock in the morning and I hadn't slept for 24 hours. I managed to get through large parts of that Pegula Barty match. And by the time we got to Berrettini Monfils, I was dead. I was destroyed, as word of the day. Let's have a quick look at this. Monfils Berrettini played a 20-minute game in set 2. A 26-point game. So it was a 20-minute game. Was that a game in which he broke? Because as I say, I missed most of the first 2 sets. I pretty much tuned in when Monfils tuned in, so to speak. And I thought Monfils, despite getting back into the match, despite having not seen the first 2 sets, I don't know. I never thought that Monfils was really in charge at any point. And even though momentum-wise, he'd got 2 sets back, I never quite felt as though he was in control. And I always thought Berrettini's nerve as well, which I think is pretty good. I don't think Berrettini's losing matches because of his nerve. He's just losing matches because the other guy on the other side of the net is often Djokovic, certainly at Slams last year. This day was high on drama, LS5. Thanks for that comment. Yeah, definitely. So we're on 70 likes. Well done, everyone. But I would let's see if we can get 100 before the end of the stream. I don't think I've done a stream yet where we've had 100 before the end. Let me know if we can get to that first of all. Snehel suggesting Monfils was fatigued in the 5th set. Yeah, maybe. I just thought that Berrettini's level, if you like, for me, Berrettini, where he's at right now, is a better player than Monfils. Monfils is probably a bit more aggressive, and when Monfils is flying, Jean Monfils was always got fatigued, always gets fatigued when the match gets long. Yeah, perhaps Jean predicted that Monfils would go through. I suggested Berrettini. 72 likes and climbing. Let's go. Yeah. If Rafa is fit or healthy after his game, he beats Berrettini. Watch Berrettini a few matches. I've been hot and cold. Thanks, Troy. Nice to have you on board again. Gary as well. That stat about the big 3 just takes your breath away. Yeah, absolutely. Berrettini. I don't know. I see Berrettini being a big threat to Rafa. I always thought that if Monfils emerges from this, that's good news for Rafa, given his head-to-head against Monfils is something like 14-2, is it? 13-2. I saw JG and Ben touch on that. Berrettini, I think he's obviously got a winning record, but it's only like 2-0, I think, against Berrettini. Of course, we'll be thinking about Berrettini 2019 US Open semi-final. Different Berrettini. Berrettini's a better player now. He's more consistent. Don't forget in that first set tiebreak as well, it was super close and just went Rafa's way. And I think that was a turning point in that match. Coincidence that Rafa and Berrettini both won sets 1 and 2, then lost sets 3 and 4, and then won set 5. Yeah, but I don't know. They were very different matches, though. I think there is, we look at the scoreboard and how they panned out. Fairly close sets with one break of serve, if you like, or 1 break advantage. And yeah, Berrettini takes 2 sets to love lead. Monfils 2 sets all, but Berrettini's health and conditioning was fine. There was no concerns about Berrettini in that 3rd set from the 5th set there. Worth noting that Berrettini's never made an ATP final on hard courts. 8 finals, 5 on clay, 3 on grass. Yeah, that is interesting, but he's still consistent. And I would probably say at a slam, if you said to me, Berrettini is going to win, I think he's got the potential to win a Wimbledon for sure. I think Shapovalov too. I think Berrettini and Shapovalov will go into this year's Wimbledon Uh, Probably alongside, let's say Djokovic plays, probably along, and let's assume Federer doesn't. You'd probably put them in with a chance of winning, is what I'm saying. You'd if Nadal is fit, you'd obviously throw him in there too. But it's Djokovic, Nadal, Shapovalov, Berrettini, and probably Zverev as well. For me, are the sort of 5 players that realistically have a chance of winning Wimbledon this year. So back to the Berrettini hard court thing. For me, Berrettini will probably win a slam on hard. Will probably not win the French. That's how I see it. So although he's got to more clay court finals, they've never been at the French. It's always been, I know he got to Madrid, for example, last year, which actually Madrid is a kind of a slightly different clay court in that it does play a bit more like a hard, which also explains why Rafa hasn't done quite so well in Madrid as he has done in Monte Carlo or Rome or Barcelona for that matter. So let's see. I think Berrettini's, that stat is great, and it shows how consistent he is across all 3 surfaces. If anything, Berrettini's jack of all trades, though, possibly Zverev as well would fall into this category. There's other issues with Zverev, but Berrettini's consistency on all those courts is also maybe his weak point as well. What I mean is he's excellent across all 3 surfaces. He is a quarterfinalist, a semi-finalist, a finalist of all 3 surfaces. But he's not a specialist in the way that you would say that obviously Nadal is on clay, in particular at Roland Garros. But even a team, for example, who's certainly very good on clay, albeit that his only slam so far has been on hard. Someone like Federer, of course, grass court specialist. Even Shapovalov, perhaps being more of a grass court specialist than others, will arguably give him a better chance of winning at least one slam than Berrettini. So, but hey, we could be talking in 3 or 4 days from now, Berrettini's won his first slam. I think Berrettini has an excellent chance. There'll be 4 people in with a chance of winning this men's title come to this time tomorrow. Berrettini will be one of those 4. And I see him very much a contender. I think all 4 will be a contender. Whoever makes it to play Medvedev in the other semi-final, I think we'll have a chance. 89 likes. Great. We're going up. 11 more and we'll get 100. Yeah. Anyway, I've kind of given an overview there of Berrettini Monfils. Let's have a quick look at a deep dive on this in terms of the stats. Let's head down here. Winners fairly equal. Unforced errors, 50. That's even more from Berrettini than Shapovalov did. So this was a fairly aggressive match from both sides of the net. I always saw Berrettini as being the favourite. I thought he would win slightly more comfortable. Let me know what you think in the live chat. What happened in sets 3 and 4 that really got Monfils back in the match? Do you think it was all on Monfils' racket, or do you think it was maybe Berrettini's level dropping? The double fault figure, by the way, of 2 double faults in the whole match. That's pretty good from Berrettini for someone who's a pretty big server. Berrettini's just a consistent player, and he's just a very, very good player. And if you have an off day against Berrettini, if you are Rafa Nadal, Daniel Medvedev, even Djokovic, if you do have an off day, Berrettini will punish you, because I don't see Berrettini having too many off days. I don't see his top level, particularly because of the backhand. Although I have to say in the 5th set today, the backhand was firing quite well. And I think that was key for that 5th set, that the backhand was doing fine. Because we do sometimes see that break down, and we do see opponents eventually break down the backhand. I think we've seen it with Djokovic against Berrettini last year. I also think Rafa in 2019. Yeah. But now both Berrettini and Nadal have 3 days, if you like, or at least 2 complete break days. I heard Rafa say that he will be enjoying the day off tomorrow. It seems like Rafa's someone who likes to practice every day, but I think tomorrow he said he's going to have a day off. At least that was his plan at the end of the close of play. We'll see how he feels tomorrow, if he feels stiff at all. But yeah, so Monfils Berrettini didn't go quite how I expected. I expected Berrettini to win in 3 or 4 sets. Again, I want to see Monfils had long balls than in the first set. Thanks, Fatima, for that. Berrettini showing fatigue. He was all over the place with shots, allegedly. That surprises me, Meg's commentary, that Berrettini was showing fatigue, because I see him as one of the fittest people on tour. His age is just perfect, 20s. Obviously, being younger than Monfils as well would have given him a slight advantage in terms of fitness, albeit that Monfils has the the experience. Let's finish just quickly on Monfils though. Is that it? Was that Monfils' last chance of making a slam final, of winning a slam? I think it probably was. I think Djokovic pulling out or deported, forced out, whichever way you want to term it, that opened the draw up for Monfils. As I said before the match, I heard so many people saying Monfils is playing well. That's nice, but he was beating players that I would expect him to win against, and he did, and he won nicely in straight sets. It was all going to be about how is Monfils going to get on from this point of the tournament onwards. Berrettini had a long set with 5 sets with Alcaraz 2 and spent a lot of time on court in this tournament. Yeah, he did, but I don't see that being an issue now. He's got 2 days off to have a break. I think that will benefit both players probably equally. So I think if anything, Rafa needs the extra 2 days more, just seeing how Rafa finished the match and how Berrettini finished the match. But yes, that's a good point, Gene. Thank you for that. Yeah, Monfils. Let me know in the chat. Is that it? Was that Monfils' last chance of making a Grand Slam final? I think it was. I don't see the things opening up quite as they did before. Monfils is like Dimitrov, close but no cigar. Maybe, yeah. I think you're right with Dimitrov too. I think both of those had the talent. Maybe as well, Tsonga. I would put in that category. I know Tsonga made the Australian Open final of, was it 2008 when he lost to Djokovic? Djokovic's first slam and first Aussie of 9. Yeah, quarterfinals is where it gets serious. I think depends on your draw. It could get serious before that. And Berrettini's had a tough run, obviously, with the 3rd round against Alcaraz. PCB 4th. Maybe slightly easier for Berrettini in the quarterfinals, but he's had a tough run to this stage. Monfils hasn't. Yes, unfortunately, he was so dejected in the post-match interview. Yeah, I can imagine, Cedric. I feel for him because I think this was his chance. I think it was. I'm not saying he would have won the tournament, but he's not going to get it much easier than this. He's not going to ever be probably ranked in the top 4 in the world again. He's not going to be in the top 4 in the world, so he's not going to get a super high seeding that he's going to get to semi-finals with such a fortunate draw. He's going to be in quarters with Berrettini's, with Djokovic's, with Nadal's, with Shapovalov's, and with Federer if he makes a comeback, Medvedev, of course, Zverev, etc. Tsitsipas. He's going to get in those quarters. Even he's going to meet them in the 3rd or the 4th round, given his ranking. And he's going to come up short probably. And even if he does get a good win against one of those, he's then going to come up against a better opponent, a better opponent, a better opponent. So this was Monfils' chance. This was his moment. And it sounds like, I didn't watch the press conference afterward, but it sounds like he knew it. And I'm sad because let me just explain why this was an amazing chance. We already mentioned Djokovic going out. You're going to play a good player in the quarterfinals, but you'd probably rather play Berrettini than Medvedev. You'd certainly rather play Berrettini than Djokovic. You're going to play a top player in the semifinals, someone like Nadal, but Nadal's had that tough match today. Nadal is vulnerable in Australia a bit more than he is elsewhere. So this was Monfils' chance to get to a final, and I do think that's it. Gary, from the point of view of being a credit to the sport, Berrettini would be a great champion. I still don't see any reasons to believe Medvedev is not going to triumph, however. Yeah, I think that's it. I think that's where we are. Nadal has a chance for sure, and he has a chance of making the final, but Medvedev's still the favourite. But Medvedev could fall before the final. I think if Medvedev gets to the final, he probably wins it, but he could lose to Felix. He really could. Nigel, thanks for that. Thoughts on Shapo's comments on Nadal's treatment? Yeah, we've seen this before with Nadal, but to be fair, the umpire did say, he said, what do you want? There was a moment, I think, at the end of that first set where the umpire, the Brazilian guy whose name escapes me right now, let me know in the chat, begins with B, I think. And Nadal, by the way, has had a bit of a contretemps with this umpire before, where they had a bit of an argument. So, yeah, and but the umpire said, look, he had 8 seconds on his serve. It wasn't like it was going, I think towards the end of the match, sets 3, 4, and 5, I was seeing the background image of Nadal serving. And interestingly, by the way, in the 5th set, as I said to you, the shadow moved across. And it actually meant that The stop clock, the shot clock, by the way, was in the bright sunshine. You could barely see it. I know the umpire will have another shot clock there. Carlos Bernardes, thank you very much. Yeah, Brazilian dude. Thanks to Eddie and thanks to Matt as well. Matt's, by the way, is on first name terms with him. Just calls him Carlos. I don't know if are you friends with each other, Matts? If you are, great, because he seems like a decent guy. Megs Carpentry celebrating the fact we've got 100 likes. That's great. Gene says we can't. By the way, the trick to getting 100 likes, I've realized, is just keep talking. 50 minutes, and we've only just got to the end of the second semi-final. Okay, I think I've done both those two semis. Let's move to the women's. Krejcikova, who I made favorite to beat Keys. Ultimately, though, Keys prevailed. And very different match to the Nadal semi-final that followed it. But there is, of course, one key similarity. Krejcikova struggled in the heat midway through the first set. So we're talking about game 3 or 4 here. And she's already getting a medical timeout. She was really struggling. We saw her struggling in New York last year as well. Conditions slightly different in New York. It was a nighttime match against Muguruza where she was struggling, and she prevailed in that match. It was getting tight towards the end of the third set. We all remember Muguruza getting angry with Krejcikova after that for the timeout that she had. But she was really struggling today in the heat, searing sunshine. She was obviously first on, so it was like 1, 2 o'clock, or even a bit early, midday, 1 o'clock there. I think it was started at 12:30 local time. So even hotter than probably the Nadal match, which obviously started a bit later in the day. And we saw her there with the ice around her neck. We saw her trying to get cool. We saw her really looking really flushed in the face, and she was really struggling. And I think that certainly affected her, and it certainly affected her in the first set. Talking of that first set, there were so many break points in the first, I think, 4 or 5 games. Break points, and they would just keep getting saved. I counted almost 10 break points in that first sort of 3 or 4 or 4 or 5 games. And let's just have a quick look at the breakpoint stats, actually. Have we got the breakpoint stats here? No, we don't seem to have them, but never mind. There were just so many. Breakpoints saved. There we go. So there's 20 breakpoints in the match, if you like. And that's a key. Basically, Krejcikova broke once from 8. She broke once from 8, whereas Keys broke 4 times from 12. Much better stat for Keys, and that was the key. No pun intended there from Keys, obviously getting the break there and getting so many of them. I mean, Keys was the better player, but I do think that Krejcikova was suffering a bit, and that now means that Ash Barty will stay world number 1 because she won today, but actually she didn't need to win, Ash Barty, but in terms of keeping the number 1 spot. But there was a chance. I think Krejcikova had to win the tournament, and Barty had to go out at this quarterfinal stage, and she would have become world number 1, zooming up from 4 in the world, I believe she is right now. Talking of which, Osaka, who was knocking on the door for number 1, I think she's down to something like 81 in the world, which is a startling stat. If there was any more evidence we needed in terms of Krejcikova struggling, there was an interesting stat which was showing the time between each point. Krejcikova was 26 seconds. Keys was 20. Keys mentioned afterwards as well her living in Orlando, if you like, or living in Florida maybe helps her a bit. We see Keys sweating, but I'm not so worried about the sweating. I'm more interested to see how things panning out. Krejcikova, 26 seconds between points. She's blowing. She needs it. Keys, 20 seconds. She's fine. Krejcikova, Czech Republic. Keys, Florida. Perhaps there's a bit there. And I think that ultimately was the difference, really. Krejcikova wasn't quite hitting her spots, wasn't quite playing as well as she was earlier in the tournament. She did play a little bit more aggressively in the second set. I think she wanted the shorter points, but with aggression comes errors, and that ultimately was the difference in this match. As I say, Barty will stay number 1 in the world. I watched the first set of this match. Let me know in the chat what you thought of this match, particularly the second set, which basically I missed. Fatima was suggesting that Barty's strategy is very good. I couldn't agree more. We saw the usual dozens and dozens of backhand slices. Pegula, I don't think, was coping with that too well. What we did see, because I saw the first set. Actually, the first 4 games, I think it was. I know it was 3-1. In fact, it might have been the first 5 games. But Pegula was pushing Barty. And Pegula was really pushing Barty on her serve. And yeah, by the way, just a quick point on Krejcikova there, Ben. Thanks for that. Yeah, should Krejcikova stop playing both doubles and singles in slams? Maybe, but we do see a bit more on the women's side, this obviously being possible. I actually have a generic point. I would actually like to see women play 5 sets. I think there's no physiological reason that women can't play 5 sets. I'd like to see it introduced as the final, at least, of the women's slams at finals. Best of 5. I know we'd have other issues at other points of the tournament. And by the way, if they went best of 5, I think you would start seeing them drop doubles. I think, though, Ben, today was more of an issue of the heat than necessarily exhaustion from playing too many matches. Oh, by the way, you have got to check out a Twitter account called I know this is not ideal on Twitter. Sorry, on doing this on Google while we watch, but I want to do head Twitter Krejcikova because this is just such a funny Twitter account. Let's have a quick look if I can find it pretty quickly because we've got the Marin Cilic one regarding him, whether he won today. And there's a Twitter account basically saying, have Head given her a new kit? Because she's always wearing the same outfit. She's always wearing the same outfit. All the tournaments, always the same one. There's an account which I've not managed to locate, but it's basically called Give Krejcikova a New Head Kit. I can't find it, and I'm not going to keep pursuing it, but please have a look for that if you get a chance, because there's a funny Twitter account which is basically along the lines of give her a new kit, or has Head given Krejcikova a new kit today? No. And I think it's even better than the Marin Cilic one. So yeah, a quick touch on what the point I was going to say before. I think I'd love to see 5 sets of women, but perhaps because of scheduling, there might be a bit more needs to be played. Maybe we need to go a day earlier on the start in terms of making it a 16-day slam. But I think we could certainly introduce it with 5 sets for the final, see how we get on. Once upon a time, the ladies did play 5 sets. I didn't know that, Adamola. Thanks for that comment. Cool. Okay. Let me know how you think the rest of the women's tournament are going. Barty's on course for the final. She'll obviously play Keys in the semi, which is not bad for her. I'd like to know how the head-to-head there is. But yeah, let me know how you think that's going to go. Let's have a quick look ahead to what Game to Love have to offer for you in the coming hours, if you like. We've got a watch-along probably tonight. We're looking at Collins against Cornet. I make Collins slight favorite in that match, but Cornet has a chance. I know Jean, among others, thinks that Cornet will win that. I've gone for Collins, but it is nip and tuck. Cornet in her first Grand Slam quarterfinal. Very much looking forward to that. Also, we've got a special show on tonight regarding the Rafa drama. And I know one or two of you have asked questions in the chat asking for an elaboration on this, which I tried to touch on a bit earlier. Thanks for that. Jean's saying Barty 2-1 against Keys. Thanks for that. Yeah, Barty's the favorite. Semi-final of the slam. We'll see how that gets on. But let's have a quick look at this. We've got this coming up this evening for you. The Rafa drama, if you like, from today. The drama with Shapovalov making accusations. All of you are corrupt, he's saying, giving preferential treatment. Nadal mentioned it in his press conference afterwards, suggesting, of course, there is no preferential treatment for the big players, in particular him. Choi saying, how dare you go against Collins? Oh, he's talking to Jean. Yeah, Jean. Yeah, well, that's between you guys. But yeah, I think Collins will win. Anyway, yeah, so tune in for this and make sure you like and subscribe this video. If you subscribe, you'll get the reminder as well. Get yourself a reminder on this Rafa drama episode we've got coming up for you tonight that JG and Ben will be hosting. Does Rafa get preferential treatment? Do the big three get preferential treatment, particularly when it comes to timeouts, particularly when it comes to the shot clock? Denis Shapovalov certainly thinks so. He continued in his press conference afterwards, expressing anger about this. Rafa said, look, maybe later on in his career, he'll regret his actions today. Let me know what you think in the live chat, but really Make sure you tune in tonight. Someone there suggesting that Rafa looks like Dracula on this picture. Very good. We had a big discussion backstage before we went live today as to whether this was the case. Yeah. So yeah, we had a we had a good discussion about how it looked green in this picture or not, or whether he looked like Hulk or whatever. So very funny. And let me know if you think he was getting preferential treatment, or if you think he is in general. I mean, this has been an ongoing theme for Rafa over the years. I remember in the final against Berrettini, in the final against Medvedev in 2019, I was actually fortunate enough to be at that match. A great match, and could well see a repeat of course in this tournament if they both get to the final. Regarding the shot clock, where Rafa was, I think he got a point penalty even in that match. I'm pretty sure he got a point penalty in the fifth set as he was trying to regain his composure, having taken a 2-set lead, 2 sets all, a bit like today, goes on to win in the fifth. Let me know what you think right now in the live chat. But really, I really want to hear a bit more about this later on, because those guys will be going in for a deep dive on this, whether you think Rafa gets preferential treatment or not. Thank you, JG. I've just managed to locate this now. Let's see if I can use, by the wonders of technology, if I can share this with you. Probably not going to be able to, because my ability with technology is not what it should be. So, yes, probably I can. Here we go. I'm going to show you the Krejcikova account that I really desperately wanted to show you earlier. Here we go. Am I spending too much time on this? Don't know. I thought it was amusing. So the account is called, hopefully you can all see this on the screen here. Did Krejcikova get a new kit? Checking if the number 4 player, WTA player in the world, Barbara Krejcikova, got a new outfit from her sponsor, Head Tennis. I think this is better than, let me know in the live chat. Do you think this is better than they did Cilic one today? I think this is even funnier. Of course, the answer today was no. And it's nope, no, every 2 days of this slam. No, and so on. And I could go on. It's just basically forever no. Will she get a new kit in time for the clay court season and the French Open that, of course, she'll be defending? Will she be defending it in the same kit that she wore last year? Interesting stat for you, by the way. And I'll pretty much wrap up on this. Even Isavic, famously winning Wimbledon in 2001. I think we spoke about this briefly yesterday. Even Isavic won Wimbledon in 2001, and he didn't change his shirt throughout the entire tournament. He did it for a good luck thing. He thought it brought him luck. Very superstitious, Mr. Ivan Isavic. I was really pleased for him to win that final in 2001, because he'd come so close to winning slams, and especially Wimbledon so many years before. I remember him losing to Agassi in 92, for example. And he didn't change his shirt for the entire year. Thank you, Adamola, backing me up there on 2001. Yeah, he didn't change his shirt. Now, that wasn't a sponsorship issue or anything like that. Ivan Isavic wore the same T-shirt for 14 days pretty much. Or, well, let's say he didn't wear it in his spare time, but certainly when he was on court, just because he thought it brought him luck. And he needed a bit of luck in that fifth set against Rafter in that final. And so pleased that he managed to win it. Even Rafter, I've heard interviewed, say that, yeah, maybe luck or could be stinky, lol, says Cedric. Yeah, I think a bit of both. But that shirt must be worth a few quid. And I'm sure even Isavic has got that frame somewhere, because such an incredible run and such an incredible win. Okay, Wildo, let's bring us back to the present day. How do you see the semi-finals going tomorrow? Let's bring us to a nice image of the day there. We've got the Rafa image there. Shall we squeeze on that? Well, let's have a quick look at this match tonight. I've gone for Collins over Cornet. Let me know what you think in the chat. The other semi-final, somebody write in the chat, actually, or Ben and JG in the private chat. Just give me a quick reminder of all the semi-finals that we've got over the next day or so, or the next 24 hours. We've got Medvedev against Felix. I know we did a preview show last night. Check that out, by the way, from JG and Ben. An excellent preview. I think I agreed with many of the predictions, but not all. Oh, and at this point, I have to mention Ben, his day 9 predictions, he got them 100% right. Ben Couldn't wait to let that out. Obviously, Ben has had an awful tournament regarding his predictions. I'm not sure who had a worse tournament between Coco Gauff going out in the first round, Leylah Fernandez going out in the first round, Skatov going out as well in the first round. And that's what brings me to Ben's predictions. That basically he's had an awful tournament. Good for you, Ben. Well done for having a good day. But I'm afraid, Ben, if you want to be winning these tournaments and winning these slams and winning big things and getting plaudits, one day out of 14 is not good enough. It's just not good enough, Ben. One day is great. I mean, listen, I can go on court, for example, tomorrow, smash it around, win a game or two, win a match maybe, but you've got to do it over 14 days. Come home to me when you do it over 14 days. That's all I'm saying. We're tired of the Seppi thing as well, by the way. No more of that. Okay, great. Yes, so we've got Sinner versus Tsitsipas tomorrow as well. But can you let me know on the other women's semi-final? It's Swiatek against that's what I want to know as well. So we've got Sinner against Tsitsipas. I've gone Sinner in that one, but I think it's a tight one. Let me know what you think in the live chat as well. Canopy, thank you. Yeah. So Swiatek, Canopy for me. Swiatek is the favorite. I'm going for Swiatek. Tsitsipas, Sinner, really tight. I will just probably finish on that one. I'll just quickly say that I think Medvedev will beat Felix, but I do see Felix getting a set, and I don't think it's going to be easy. I think the really difficult one. Oh, Gene's going for Canopy. Nice one there. I think that's a brave choice. Yeah, it's Fatima going Swiatek in 3. Yeah, I think perhaps quite possibly as well. I think the difficult one to call though, and I don't know if you all agree with me, I think the difficult one to call is Sinner Tsitsipas. It's probably for me the most anticipated match of the day, just because I see the other ones being a bit clearer. I see Collins as favorite. I see Iga as favorite. I see Medvedev as favorite. But this one I think is much closer. I think top Tsitsipas, top firing, on fire Tsitsipas wins. But we haven't seen top on fire Tsitsipas for 8 months since the French Open final. I guess that's the big thing. By the way, Gunnar there saying, I hope we see a Rafa Sinner final. So do I, but because I think that will be the final that gives Rafa the best chance. I think if Tsitsipas gets as far as the final, it suggests that he's over this issue he had with his elbow. He's over the form issue he had at certain times last year. And I think he is getting better. I think he got a bit lucky against Fritz in the previous round. I say a bit lucky. I mean, he took advantage of the luck, if you like. He was clutch in the key moments. If it's a top firing Tsitsipas versus Sinner, Snehal, good question there. Repeat after me. Okay, thank you. Shvi and Tick. Oh, okay, it's the pronunciation. You might be right, Eddie. I don't know how your Polish is, and I'm sure mine is off too. But I think it's Szwadczek. I tell you what I'm going to do. I've got quite a few Polish friends, Eddie. I'm going to go home, do some homework, speak to them. Hi, George. Sorry you're late. Hope Ben has a great song plan for Rafa if he wins on Sunday. Yes, so do I. George, hit the like button, please, if you haven't done so already. Make sure you go back to the beginning of the video and we go for a deep dive on Rafa as well. Yeah, I'm going to practice the Swiatek pronunciation and I'll get back to you on that one. But yeah, somebody asking if Tsitsipas is fit, firing 100%. If he is fit, firing 100%, I think he beats Sinner. But I don't think he is fit, firing at 100%. And I think Sinner is probably playing the best tennis of his career, albeit a very fledgling career. So, yeah, Snehal, good question. But I think Sinner wins. But it is tight. Like I said with Shapovalov against Rafa, I think you can make arguments for both. If somebody in the live chat thinks Tsitsipas will win, there are reasons for that. And the reasons are that Tsitsipas is absolute best, I think, as it stands right now, will beat Sinner at his absolute best. But what we've seen is Sinner's trajectory in terms of improvement has been like this. It's not been quite like Alcaraz, which was like that. I think it has been a bit more steady incline for him. But he is playing the best tennis of his career. And I think it'll be enough to beat Sinner. It'll be enough to beat Tsitsipas. But it is the closest of the four matches tomorrow. It's one I'm looking forward to. And yeah, by the way, check out some of the Kostinakis and Kyrgios fun and games winning their doubles again yesterday. They are a bag of entertainment, and certainly get yourself watch some of the videos from that. Okay, 1 hour and 8 minutes. Thank you for tuning in. It's the longest one we've had so far. Went for a deep dive on the Rafa match. Hopefully, I covered the other ones pretty well as well. I think I did about half an hour on Rafa and 40 minutes for the others, as you would expect, though. 20-time Grand Slam, 5 sets, etc. Looking forward to tomorrow. Make sure we all get refreshed, sleep, enjoy. I'll see you again tomorrow morning, afternoon, evening, or night. I have no idea. Natalia there, who may well be Polish. She says she's Polish, yeah. Świątek. There we go. N comes from the letter, yeah, that, squiggly one, which gives the voice sound on. By the way, I don't know if you're a phonetic teacher, but that's much closer than the previous suggestion, and I'm going with you as you're Polish. I will be practicing that over the next few hours because I'm sure I'll be touching on Świątek tomorrow to see how she got on in her semi-final. I'm predicting her to win. Probably in straight sets. Okay. Thank you. It was a marathon. Thanks, Eddie. Thanks, Matt. Ademola saying well done. I'm going to take some water now because my throat is dry. See you soon. Hit the like button. Hit the subscribe. Make sure you tune in for tonight's Rafa debate, and make sure you tune in for some of the watch-alongs coming. And I will speak to you tomorrow. Bye.